I never thought renovating a bedroom would destroy my marriage. But when my wife Emily tore up the carpet in our master bedroom and found what was hidden beneath, everything I thought I knew about my family, my inheritance, and my marriage came crashing down around me. Let me take you back to where this all started, because understanding how we got here matters. My name is Daniel Hayes, and I'm 38 years old. I teach American history at Lincoln High School in a small New England town called Millbrook, the kind of place where everyone knows your business and the local diner has served the same meatloaf special for 40 years. I inherited the Victorian house on Elm Street from my grandmother, Margaret Hayes, when she passed away 3 years ago. The place was a beautiful old lady of a home, 3 stories of ornate woodwork, stained glass windows, and secrets I didn't know existed. Emily and I had been married for 10 years when this story really begins. We met at a community art show where she was displaying some interior design concepts, and I was chaperoning a group of students for extra credit. She had this infectious energy, this way of seeing potential in broken things. Maybe that's why she fell for me, a quiet history teacher with more books than social skills. She was the spark, I was the steady flame. At least that's what I thought. For the first 8 years we were solid. Sure, we had our moments, what couple doesn't? But we laughed together, traveled when we could afford it, and built a life that felt purposeful. Emily's freelance interior design business was growing, and I loved teaching kids about the past, hoping they wouldn't repeat it. We talked about having children eventually, once we got the house in better shape. That house. God, that house. I'd barely spent time there as a kid. My grandmother was kind but distant, and my father had his own complicated relationship with her that he never fully explained. When she died and left me the property, I was surprised. My older brother Marcus had always been her favorite, or so I thought. Marcus was the successful one, the corporate lawyer in Boston with the corner office and the expensive suits. I was just a teacher who graded papers at the kitchen table. Why'd she give it to you and not Marcus? Emily had asked when we first got the news. I have no idea, I'd said honestly. Maybe she knew he wouldn't want it. Too much work for someone like him. Marcus hadn't contested it, which surprised me even more. He just shrugged at the funeral and said, "You deal with it, Danny. I've got enough on my plate." There was something in his tone, something dismissive that stung, but I let it go. That was always our dynamic, Marcus succeeding loudly, me existing quietly in his shadow. The house needed work, there was no question about that. Peeling wallpaper, outdated electrical, plumbing that groaned and complained when you ran the shower. But it had good bones, as Emily liked to say. She'd been talking about renovating since we moved in, but we never had the money. Then, about 6 months before everything changed, Emily landed a major client, a tech executive who wanted his entire penthouse redesigned. The fee was substantial. Suddenly, Emily had renovation fever. "We could make this place incredible, Daniel," she'd said one evening, spreading design magazines across our bed. "Open concept kitchen, modernize the bathrooms, refinish all these floors. This house could be a showpiece." I'd smiled and nodded, but something in my gut resisted. It was my grandmother's house, and changing it felt like erasing her. But Emily's eyes were so bright with possibility, and I wanted to make her happy. Our marriage had been feeling strained lately. We were roommates more than lovers, passing each other in hallways, eating dinner in front of the TV instead of talking. Maybe, I thought, this project could bring us closer. "Okay," I'd said. "Let's do it." That decision would lead us to the hidden room. Emily threw herself into the renovation with an intensity that both impressed and worried me. She was at the house every day while I was at school, meeting with contractors, tearing out old fixtures, making decisions. At first, I appreciated her dedication, but as weeks passed, I noticed she was becoming obsessive. She'd stay up until 2 in the morning researching Victorian architecture. She'd snap at me when I suggested keeping certain original features. The house was consuming her. "Maybe we should slow down a bit. I suggested one night after she'd spent 3 hours arguing with a contractor on the phone about crown molding. Slow down, Daniel. Do you have any idea how much potential this place has? Your grandmother let it rot. Someone needs to honor what it could be. My grandmother didn't let it rot. She was elderly and she was negligent. This house is a historical treasure, and she treated it like a storage unit. Her words stung. My grandmother had been a complicated woman, but she didn't deserve that criticism. I bit back my response, though, because fighting with Emily had become exhausting. She was determined, and when Emily was determined, arguing was pointless. Then came the Tuesday that changed everything. I was at school, teaching my third period class about World War II propaganda posters, when my phone buzzed with a text from Emily. I normally kept my phone silenced during class, but I glanced at it during a quiet moment when students were working. "You need to come home now." My stomach dropped. The text was so unlike her usual messages. No emoji, no context, just urgency. "Is everything okay?" I texted back. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, "Just come home." I told my students to continue their work, stepped into the hallway and called her. She answered on the first ring. "Emily, what's wrong? Are you hurt?" "I'm fine, but Daniel, I found something. In the bedroom, under the carpet." "Found what? Just come home, please." Her voice was shaking. Emily didn't shake easily. I told my department head I had a family emergency, got a substitute to cover my remaining classes, and drove home faster than I should have. My mind raced through possibilities. Had she found structural damage, mold, asbestos? Whatever it was had clearly rattled her. When I pulled into our driveway 20 minutes later, I found Emily sitting on the front porch steps, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea that had clearly gone cold. Her face was pale, her eyes red-rimmed. My heart hammered as I approached. What happened?" She stood slowly, setting down the cup. "I need you to see something, and I need you to be honest with me about whether you knew about this." "Knew about what?" I stared at it, genuinely confused. "What is that?" Emily's eyes searched my face. "You really don't know?" "Emily, I've never seen that before, I swear to you. What is it?" She gestured toward the open trapdoor. I hadn't noticed in my shock, but she'd already pulled it up. Stone steps descended into darkness below. A smell of old earth and mustiness wafted up. "I found it when I pulled up the carpet," Emily said quietly. I opened it. "I went down there, Daniel." "You went down alone." "Emily, that could have been dangerous." "Don't," she interrupted sharply. "Don't make this about my safety right now. You need to see what's down there. And then you need to explain to me why your family kept this hidden." "I don't know anything about this," I insisted, but she was already walking toward the stairs. I followed her down into the darkness, using my phone's flashlight to illuminate the way. The hidden room was about 12 feet by 15 feet, with stone walls and a surprisingly high ceiling. It was cool and dry, not damp like a typical cellar. Against one wall stood metal shelving units holding old supplies, canned goods from brands I didn't recognize, bottled water in thick glass containers, medical supplies in vintage packaging. A small cot with a wool blanket sat in one corner. On a wooden desk against the far wall, I saw what looked like old radio equipment and a stack of leather-bound journals. "It's a panic room," Emily said. "Built during World War II, from what I can tell. Look at the dates on these supplies. 1942, 1943. Your great-grandfather built this, Daniel, and somehow your grandmother never told you. Your father never told you. This was deliberate." I moved to the desk, running my fingers over the journals. They were embossed with initials, R.H. Robert Hayes. My great-grandfather, a man I'd never met, who died decades before I was born. I opened the top journal carefully, mindful of the brittle pages. The handwriting was precise, old-fashioned. I read the first entry aloud. September 15, 1942. "The network has asked me to prepare the room for arrivals. Margaret worries about the risk, but we cannot stand by when we have the means to help. If they discover us, we will face consequences, but conscience demands action. The first family arrives next week, a Jewish couple fleeing Europe through Canada. May God protect us all. My hands trembled as I turned pages. Entry after entry detailed my great-grandfather's work with an underground network sheltering refugees during and after World War II. Jews fleeing the Holocaust, political dissidents, people who would have died if they hadn't found safe harbor. This room had hidden desperate people while the world tore itself apart above them. Daniel. Emily's voice was strange, not angry now, but almost frightened. There's more, behind that false panel. She pointed to the back wall where a section of stone looked slightly different from the rest. I approached it, found the seam, and pulled. The panel swung open on hidden hinges, revealing a small cavity. Inside were leather pouches, wooden boxes, and metal containers. I opened the first pouch. Gold coins spilled into my palm, gleaming even in the dim light. The boxes contained war bonds, stock certificates, and bundles of old currency. The metal containers held jewelry, wedding rings, watches, precious stones. "Emergency funds," I whispered, reading another journal entry that explained the cash. The network maintained funds for refugees to start new lives. This was meant to be distributed, but I flipped through more pages. The network dissolved after the war ended. New systems were established. My great-grandfather intended to donate this to refugee organizations, but he died suddenly in 1952. A heart attack. He never told anyone where the funds were hidden except your grandmother, Emily finished. She knew all of this, and she never said a word. Not to your father, not to you. She just let it sit here. Do you have any idea what this is worth? I looked at the fortune before us. Easily hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe more. Money that could change our lives. Money that was meant for suffering people decades ago. Why would she keep this secret? I asked, more to myself than Emily. Emily's laugh was bitter. Maybe because your family is good at keeping secrets. Maybe because she didn't trust anyone. Maybe because she was afraid. Who knows? The question is, what are we going to do about it? That's when our marriage really started to crack. "We need to report this," I said immediately. "These funds were meant for refugee aid. We should." "Report it?" Emily's voice rose. "Daniel, we've been struggling to pay for these renovations. Your teacher's salary barely covers our mortgage. This is your inheritance. Legally, it's ours. But ethically, it's not." "Ethics?" She stepped closer, her face flushed. "When did you become this person?" Her eyes flashed. "What person? Someone practical. Someone who doesn't want to throw away a miracle because of some misplaced guilt. You've always been like this, Daniel. So focused on the past that you can't see the present. Your students, your history books, your dead relatives. You care more about all of them than building a real life with me. That's not fair, isn't it? When was the last time we had a real conversation that wasn't about your lesson plans or my clients? When did we last make love? When did you last look at me like I mattered more than your grandmother's memory?" Her words cut deep because they held truth. We had been drifting, but this wasn't the answer. "I can't keep this money, Em, I won't." "Then we have a problem," she said quietly. "Because I'm not going to watch you throw away our future for people who are already gone." We stood in that underground room, surrounded by the ghosts of my family's secrets, and I felt our marriage slipping through my fingers like those gold coins. The next few days were agony. Emily and I moved around each other like strangers. She slept in the guest room. I spent hours reading through my great-grandfather's journals, trying to understand the man I'd never known, the legacy I'd inherited without realizing it. The journals told incredible stories. The Goldstein family, who'd spent 3 months in this room before relocating to New York. The Czech professor who'd spoken 6 languages and taught my great-grandfather chess during his 2-week stay. The Polish resistance fighter who'd arrived with a bullet wound and nearly died before my great-grandfather found a sympathetic doctor. My great-grandfather had been a quiet hero, risking his safety and his family's safety for strangers. And my grandmother had kept it all secret. Why? I found a clue in one of the later journals, dated 1951, Margaret fears government seizure. The McCarthy hearings have people terrified. She worries that if anyone discovers what we did, they'll call us communist sympathizers, confiscate our property, destroy our family. I've tried to explain that helping refugees isn't political, it's human. But she's frightened. Perhaps she's right to be. I've agreed to keep quiet until the madness passes. God forgive me if that's the wrong choice. My grandmother had been afraid. In the paranoid climate of the early Cold War, associating with refugees and underground networks could destroy you. So she'd buried the truth, even from her own children. She'd carried that fear her entire life, keeping the room sealed, the money hidden, the story untold. And she'd left it all to me. Not to Marcus, to me. Why? I called my brother for the first time in months. Marcus, did Grandma ever tell you anything about her father, about great-grandpa Robert? Not really. Why? Did she ever mention anything unusual about the house? Danny, what's this about? I'm in the middle of a deposition prep. I told him everything, the room, the journals, the money. There was a long silence on the other end. Jesus Christ, he finally said. I don't even know what to say. Does Emily know? She found it. And she wants to keep the money. I want to donate it. Another pause. Of course you do. You always were the Boy Scout. Marcus. Look, Danny, I get it. You want to do the noble thing. But maybe Emily has a point. That money has been sitting there for 70 years. You're not obligated to finish someone else's mission. Our great-grandfather's mission. A great-grandfather you never met. Don't make this about family loyalty when the family never told you the truth in the first place. Grandma clearly wanted you to have that house and everything in it. Maybe she left it to you because she knew you'd figure out what to do with it. Maybe that's your decision to make, not some obligation to the past. Why didn't she leave it to you? I heard Marcus sigh. You really want to know because you were her favorite, Danny, always were. She saw something in you, probably that same martyr complex you're showing now. You cared about history, about stories, about meaning. I just cared about success. She knew I'd sell that house in a heartbeat and never look back. She wanted it to go to someone who'd cherish it. I didn't know. Of course you didn't. You never saw how she looked at you when you talked about your students or your lesson plan. He was brave, she said without looking up. Your great-grandfather, these stories are incredible. Yeah, he was. I've been thinking. She closed the journal carefully. About what you said, about what this money was meant for. Let me finish. I was angry because I felt like you were choosing dead people over our life together. And maybe that was unfair. But I've been reading these entries, and I understand now why this matters to you. These people were terrified, hunted, desperate. Your great-grandfather gave them hope, and that money was part of that hope. She looked at me finally, her eyes wet. But I'm scared too, Daniel. I'm scared that we're falling apart. I'm scared that we're just going through the motions. This house, this renovation, I thought it would bring us together, but I think I was using it to avoid dealing with us. With the fact that we've stopped being a team. I sat down beside her, taking her hand. I've been avoiding it too. Burying myself in work in the past. You were right about that. So what do we do? About the money, about us, about all of this. I thought about my great-grandfather, making impossible choices in a dark time. I thought about my grandmother living with fear and secrets. I thought about who I wanted to be, what legacy I wanted to leave. I think we honor the original intent, I said slowly. We donate the bulk of it to refugee organizations. Not because we have to, but because it's right. But maybe we keep enough to finish the renovations thoughtfully, to make this house a home we can actually build a life in together. To prove that we can honor the past without being trapped by it. Emily's hand tightened in mine. What if it's not enough? The money we keep, I mean. What if we're still struggling? Then we struggle together. Like we should have been doing all along, instead of drifting apart. She leaned against my shoulder. Your great-grandfather wrote about his wife in these journals, about how scared she was but how she supported him anyway, about how they were a team even when the world was insane. That's what I want, Daniel. I want to be your team again. Me too. We sat in that hidden room, surrounded by the evidence of courage and sacrifice, and I felt something shift between us. Not fixed, we had work to do, but shifting in the right direction. The next few weeks were transformative. We contacted several refugee aid organizations and arranged meetings. We had the coins, bonds, and jewelry professionally appraised. The total value was staggering, nearly $800,000. We decided to keep $100,000 for house repairs and our future, enough to provide stability without excess. The remaining $700,000 would be divided among organizations that helped refugees and asylum seekers. But we did something else too. We decided to tell my great-grandfather's story. I reached out to the local historical society and several Holocaust museums. The journals were invaluable historical documents. My great-grandfather's network had been one of dozens operating across North America, but few had left such detailed records. Historians were thrilled. We arranged for the journals to be properly preserved and digitized. The hidden room would be documented and eventually included in regional historical tour. My great-grandfather's courage wouldn't be buried anymore. The local newspaper ran a feature about the discovery. We started getting calls and emails from descendants of the families my great-grandfather had helped. A woman in her 80s called to say her parents had hidden in our basement in 1944. She had been born in America because of my great-grandfather's courage. A man sent photographs of his grandmother, who'd spent a winter in that room before moving to California. She'd lived to be 96 and always spoke of the angel in New England who saved her. These connections moved me profoundly. My great-grandfather's actions, Emily and I worked together on everything, organizing the donations, meeting with organizations, coordinating with historians. We talked, really talked, for hours about what mattered to us, what we wanted our lives to look like. The renovation continued, but with a different spirit. We weren't erasing the past anymore. We were honoring it while building our future. We restored the hidden room carefully, preserving it exactly as we'd found it. We kept the old supplies, the radio equipment, the cot. It became a memorial of sorts, a reminder of what courage looked like. One evening, about 6 weeks after the discovery, we hosted a small gathering at the house. We'd invited some of the descendants who'd contacted us, along with representatives from the organizations receiving donations. An elderly woman named Ruth, whose aunt had been sheltered in our basement, stood in the hidden room and wept. My aunt died when I was young, she told us, but she used to tell me about this place. She said it smelled like hope, like earth and safety and tomorrow. I never thought I'd stand here. Emily squeezed my hand as Ruth spoke. Later, after everyone had left, we stood in our bedroom looking down at the open trapdoor. Are we going to keep it accessible? Emily asked. I think so. Maybe with a glass panel over it so you can see it but it's protected. A reminder. Of what? That secrets can hurt, that courage matters, that the past shapes us but doesn't have to trap us. She smiled, very teacherly of you. I am a teacher. You're also a good man, Daniel Hayes. Your great-grandfather would be proud. I think your grandmother would be too. I wish she'd told me all of it. Fear makes people do strange things. Maybe she was protecting you in the only way she knew how. Or maybe she trusted you to discover it when the time was right. Either way, you honored her legacy. And his. That night we made love for the first time in months. It was tender and real and felt like coming home to each other. Afterward, lying in the darkness with Emily's head on my chest, I thought about the journey we'd been on. The money was distributed over the following months. We received thank you letters from refugee families who'd received support because of the donations. We funded educational programs, legal aid services, and shelter networks. My great-grandfather's money was finally doing what he'd intended, giving hope to desperate people. We used our portion to finish the renovations thoughtfully. We kept as many original features as possible while making the house livable and safe. The hidden room remained, accessible through a reinforced glass floor panel in our bedroom. Visitors could see down into it, understand its history, but the memorial itself was preserved. The local historical society created a small exhibit about the underground network, featuring my great-grandfather's journals and photographs of the room. School groups came through, including some of my own students. Teaching them about my own family's history was surreal and powerful. Mr. Hayes, one of my students, asked during a visit, "Were you scared when you found all that stuff?" Scared of what? That people would judge your family. That they'd think your great-grandfather was, like, breaking the law or whatever. I thought about that. My great-grandfather was breaking the law. Harboring refugees without documentation was illegal. But sometimes laws are unjust, and conscience demands we do what's right even when it's illegal. That's a complicated legacy to inherit. But you're proud of him. I'm very proud of him, and I'm proud that I got to finish what he started. Emily and I started trying for a baby that fall. We didn't get pregnant right away, but the trying brought us closer. We talked about what kind of parents we wanted to be, what stories we'd tell our children about their great-great-grandfather. "We'll bring them down to the room," Emily said one night. "When they're old enough, we'll read them the journals and teach them that ordinary people can do extraordinary things. And that keeping secrets hurts the people we love," I added. "That too." My brother Marcus visited for Thanksgiving, his first time back to the house since childhood. I gave him a tour, including the hidden room. He stood there for a long time, reading journal entries, not saying anything. "I would have sold it," he said finally. "The house, the money, all of it. I would have cashed out and never known any of this existed. Grandma was right to leave it to you." "Marcus." "No, I mean it. You did something good here, Danny." A year after the discovery, Emily and I stood in the hidden room on the anniversary. We'd lit candles around the space, making it warm and alive. She was 3 months pregnant. We just confirmed it the week before. We held hands and read aloud from my great-grandfather's journals, honoring the people who'd found safety there. "What do you think he'd say?" Emily asked. "If he could see what we did." "I think he'd say we were foolish to give away so much money," I joked. "Daniel, I think he'd say we understood. That compassion matters more than comfort. That our job isn't to hoard blessings but to pass them forward." Emily placed my hand on her still flat stomach. "We're passing something forward now." "Yeah, we are." The baby, a girl we'd name Margaret after my grandmother, would grow up knowing her family's history. She'd know about secrets and courage, about fear and love, about the way the past shapes us if we let it. She'd stand in that hidden room someday and understand that ordinary people, faced with extraordinary circumstances, can choose courage. My marriage survived because Emily and I learned to communicate, to be honest about our fears and hopes, to work as a team again. The money helped us build security, but the real treasure was learning to trust each other again, to be vulnerable, to choose each other every day. I often think about my grandmother in those last years, living alone in this house, keeping that room sealed, carrying the weight of those secrets. Did she hope I'd find it? Did she imagine this outcome? I'll never know, but I choose to believe she left it to me because she trusted I'd understand what mattered. Marcus was right. I care about history, about stories, about meaning. That's not a weakness, it's a strength. And Emily learned to value that part of me again, just as I learned to value her vision and her practical wisdom. The house stands as a testament now, not just to Victorian architecture or family inheritance, but to the idea that our choices ripple forward through time. My great-grandfather chose courage. My grandmother chose protection, however misguided. I chose honor and honesty, and Emily chose partnership. Together, we're building something that will last. I still teach history at Lincoln High, still grade papers at the kitchen table. But now when students ask why studying the past matters, I have a new answer. I tell them about the hidden room, about refugees and courage, about money meant for compassion that sat buried for 70 years until someone was ready to use it right. The past isn't dead, I tell them, quoting Faulkner. It's not even past. Everything we do today becomes the history someone else inherits tomorrow. Make sure your legacy is worth inheriting. Some students roll their eyes, but some lean forward, listening, thinking. And maybe someday, one of them will find their own hidden room, their own family secret that demands courage and choice. And maybe they'll remember what their history teacher said about honor and compassion and doing the right thing even when it's hard. That's all any of us can do, really. Make choices we can live with, honor the people who came before, build something worth passing forward. The hidden room isn't hidden anymore. The secrets are told. The money is where it should be. My marriage is stronger than it's ever been. And soon, there'll be a new generation to carry these stories forward. I think my great-grandfather would approve. I think my grandmother finally would understand. And I know, without question, that I made the right choice. Not the easy one, but the right one. If you've ever discovered something about your family